Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Universal Talk. Today we have another special teleconference for our listeners, a 2-hour discussion with a panel of highly gifted individuals. On today's show, we've questioned what would happen if we took 5 individuals with a higher awareness and brought them together to discuss the changes and shifting of energy for 2011. Let's present the case. First, we must consider that all things are created from the same source of energy. If this is true, then all things are truly connected. If we look at everything as energy from the highest perspective, whether perceived or not perceived by the individual, then things may just make more sense to us, or be a little easier to understand or comprehend the rationale and the meaning of all things. What if, by virtue of the very flow of energy, everything was influenced by energies that carried a different vibrational frequency? What if this is a time of transition or change of the previous energy flow? And what if, through the intelligence of the universe and the ebb and flow of energy and the divine plan of constant growth or expansion, change is simply inevitable? In a moment, we will have a panel of guests on the show to discuss this very thing. I'd like to take a moment now and introduce all of my guests, including Laura Eisenhower, Alfred Webre, Rama von Iyer, and to join us a little later is Teri Ippoliti. Welcome to Universal Talk.
Hi there.
Hello. Thank you.
Alfred, you with us? We have Rama and Laura, and let me see if we can get Alfred here.
Sorry, I had my mute button on because I was letting all of our Facebook friends know that we're on the air.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so can we hear everybody? Okay?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So this week, how about we start with you, Laura? And the question I have to start with is, what is your personal perceived connection with Source? I'm not quite sure if she's with us, so you know what, Alfred, we're going to go with you.
Wow. Personal perceived connection with Source.
Yes.
Wow. Well, and here, and I'm actually in the middle. I've actually just completed and reworking my new book, Dimensions, which will be out a little later on this year.
Awesome.
And it addresses that question, and from an empirical standpoint. And so we went and collected replicable empirical information done according to the scientific method, which is standard protocols and replicable results. And we have one field of over 7,000 test subjects. And in a field of hypnotic regression of soul memories of the interlife and of the creation of soul process, the consensus of soul memories is that the process by which human souls are created is sort of as an egg of light out of a vast sea of light. I'm sort of using a metaphor or, human words to try to describe this, and the sea of light being Source. And so we are like this egg of light that is holographically created out of the sea of light. So, hey, I want to break you the news that we're all Source. And that's the origin of the term namaste. I salute the God within you.
Right. Awesome.
Okay. So it's just the degree toward which one wishes to be conscious, and one can hold within one's consciousness that not only is one source, but everyone sees is source.
Right.
And sometimes that's a hard one to hold.
You know what? It's ironic to me as I'm listening to you and what your book is about and how I prepared for this show, and what I just said and suggested is everything you just said. And we didn't talk about this before the show. That's what's ironic to me. That's awesome. Oh, wow. And, it's great because the listeners kind of get a preview of your book, at least a little bit, huh?
Well, this is the era of I'm not sure of the term. They say science and spirit marry, or science and spirit come together.
Yeah.
Or science and spirit are integrated. There's all sorts of ways of looking at it. And in fact, science is now addressing all of these, quote, mysteries that traditionally the religions have attempted to address. And now, for example, I looked it up the other day because I was dealing with this UFO over the Dome of the Rock, which 3.3 billion followers of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism all claim this one artifact in Jerusalem as their own. So that's 3.3 billion people who are now living. Each have a different religion that have a different version of, say, what their connection to source is, and the whole story, what the soul is, and everything else. So the religions, I've come to see them as kind of socio-economic, political control organizations based on sacred text and a bit of magic and some smoke and mirrors, and a lot of manipulation and belief by the 3.3 billion human beings that follow this, whereas science, once you start digging into it, gives you a lot better, more complete, and more accurate information and insights as to what the nature of the interlife is, the soul, the afterlife, what the nature of source is, what your connection to source is, and, all of the above.
Right. Wonderful. Okay, thank you. Rama, would you like to go next?
Sure. Can you just clarify one thing? Are you asking what is my, Rama's, connection to source, or what is the connection to source of all beings? I wasn't exactly sure what the scope of your question was.
Well, the question is, what is your personal perceived connection? Because everybody has their own connotation. I want to know what your personal perceived connection is.
Okay, me, Rama.
You, Rama, you.
Okay. My personal connection to source is something that I experience in a continuous way, because the way I experience life, there's no way to not be perceiving source around me, because I perceive, and by source I presume you mean what a lot of people refer to as God or spirit, or this deeper intelligence that unites everything, right, and wisdom. And I perceive that source power flowing through every atom, so I'm constantly swimming in this source energy. For me, I can't understand the idea that spirit is somehow removed from its creation, because to me, when creation was made, whatever creation was made out of is creation's made out of. So for me, spirit, source, God, truth, whatever, it's all right here. It's in matter. To me, matter isn't a prison holding people apart from source. To me, matter is an expression of the beauty of the wisdom and intelligence of source. So to me, it's everywhere. You say, what's my connection to source? Well, it's all around me. It's my body. It's everything I look at. Admittedly, some things reflect the beauty of source better than others, but that can be divided into two distinct categories: things created by the intellects of people of modern times, and the things created by nature. So everything that's made by nature, every flower, every tree, all the atoms, everything, all of that is pure and beautiful and very well reflects its source energy. Things that are made by humans don't always tend to do that, but that is something that will obviously be corrected at some point in the future, because the humans are busy destroying themselves with their creations, whereas nature continues to be beautiful and is growing. So to me, the connection's everywhere. There's nowhere that it's not.
Right. Awesome. Wonderful. Okay, Laura, the same question is, what is your personal perceived connection with Source?
I perceive Source as the spirit essence within each being. There's a spark, there's a connection, there's something happening with the bridging between the physical matter and Source energy itself through the divine pair, through our harmonious relationship with the masculine and the feminine within ourselves, which helps us step into that frequency and not be blocked, not be out of balance, not be off track. But there's no direction that you can go in that is not a part of Source. But there's a way to receive it and experience it without the human misinterpretation or the aspects of humanity that represent sort of a artificial copy or an attempt to mimic it or become a form of power that seems to play the role of God. So to me, Source is the breath of life. It's spirit. It's nature is the manifestation, the physical manifestation of it. And so when we connect to the four elements, air, water, fire, and earth, within ourselves, and we connect ourselves to spirit, we're actually doing the alchemy of bringing ourselves out of any sort of consciousness that isn't fully in our higher being. It relieves us from our lower nature and helps connect the poles between the spirit world and the physical plane, which are already connected. But we are vessels in order to do that work so that we walk in alignment, walk in our truth. And it's that essence of truth that are our true origins, and anything else isn't really real, even though it manifests what we see as reality. So Source, my connection is, it's just my truth. It's my home. It's my origins. And I see that with all beings, and that anything that separates them from this notion is a part of a lower archonic force that wishes to compete and take us off track. And this particular year ahead and what's, moving us forward into the future is sort of abolishing and taking all of that away through the shock and through the upheaval of really stepping into this frequency as it emanates from the galactic core, as many are awakening. So it sort of forces this shedding of anything that is not perceiving that this connection is already here and already with us. It's not something that one must attain. It's something that one must shed the falseness away from themselves in order to be illuminated in the truth that we are emanations of Source, and this is who we really are. These are our origins, and we're physical manifestations and expressions of it.
Okay, great. All right, so therefore, do energies that flow through the universe affect matter in such a way that actually changes the structure itself, such as DNA? And I'm going to go with Rama first on this one.
All right, so you're referring to higher dimensional forces coming from a deeper plane, coming down into the physical, and then manipulating the actual physical arrangement of matter?
Well, sort of, but basically it's awareness in energy. So if you're looking at high perspective and it's energy that we're talking about, does other energies or higher frequencies affect other energy or other frequencies, and in such a way such as the structure of DNA or solid matter or material?
Okay. I plan on answering that question, but I was kind of curious about your personal connection to Source.
Oh,
do you want to share?
Sure. Basically, I think everything, and I'm looking from the highest perspective, is every single thing perceived and not perceived, because we're limited by the five senses that we use here as human beings, unless we allow ourselves to open up to these other senses that we probably have, or the sixth sense that a lot of people talk about. But I think that everything is energy. Everything. We perceive it in the three-dimensional way as a solid form because of our five senses and what we've been taught, whether it be from our parents or the media, books, whatever. And that becomes your reality. I think there's many variables that go into this as far as your perception goes, because there's, oh my gosh, there's just so many variables, which we're going to get into here in a little bit. But from the highest perspective, I think every single thing is energy. I think every single thing, whether it's perceived as negative or positive, comes from the same stuff or the same source. So whether you view it as positive or negative, it's still from the same source. So I think that with this divine plan that's in place, there's opposition for growth. I think energy is constantly expanding. I think that we are part of that energy, so we're constantly stretched, and we're meant to grow or expand, just like energy is but basically that's what we are. So that's what I think, that my personal perception of source is, yes, I'm source. As most of you have said, we're all connected to source because we are source. And it's hard to see myself as this desk that I'm have my elbows on. It's because of what we've been taught most of our life, but it's the same stuff. We just kind of perceive it in a different way. And I think because of the vibrational frequency that it carries, it has a different density or a different perceived feel to it, if you will, because the frequency that it carries allows it to be more dense or less dense. So that's kind of how I see it. I think everything's connected. I don't think there is any separation, which we try to separate, and the ego mind tries to separate and think that we're great sometimes, but really everything's the same. So it's my take on it.
Oh, neat. And now you're asking, does this energy that you perceive as the source of everything have the ability to manipulate physical material?
Well, yeah, because basically if you take a look at energy, and if you have a higher vibrational frequency come in contact with a lower vibrational frequency, does the higher vibrational frequency help raise the lower one, and thereby changing the structure or the DNA or the material physicalness of it? Now, this is kind of quantum stuff, probably. I have never really studied quantum physics, but in my head, that's what I'm thinking I'm talking about right now. I just have an understanding of it, but I don't know what you would name it or call it.
Okay. All right. Well, in my awareness, physical matter and the deeper planes of energy and vibration, the various words that you've used to refer to these other planes of existence, to me, there are many expressions of a fundamental plan, a fundamental blueprint, which is in the code of the atom, it's in the code of the sun, the code of the human being, the code of the fox, the code of an angel on the higher planes, the code of all the dimensions. There's one plan that gets expressed in many different ways depending on what dimension you're in. So all these different dimensions, they share a certain commonality. They have a certain fundamental similarity, even though they seem to be radically different, and they are radically different in some ways. They also have an intrinsic harmony and capacity to interact in a harmonious way. So the first question that arises when you ask, can these deeper planes of energy interact and affect physical matter? The first question would be, well, if they were to, how would that interaction occur? What are the rules that govern the interaction between a physical object and a deeper dimensional power source? And the fundamental set of rules is what I'm talking about, this code of life, you could call it, or cosmic DNA code. And everyone shares it, but everyone expresses different parts of it in different ways. Like every cell of your body shares the same DNA code but uses it differently. Your stomach doesn't use your DNA code the same way your foot does. In the same way, the physical plane utilizes the same code of life as every other plane, but does it differently. So when two different dimensions want to interact, there is a set of common rules that they can follow so they can affect each other. And the physical plane can affect the higher planes. The higher planes can affect the lower planes. As far as raising one dimension up or down, maybe. I think of it more as each dimension wanting to beautify itself, and then the beautification that it's causing to itself can affect other planes as well. So if people in the energy plane that you might call angels want to beautify physical people, it's because they've beautified themselves, and they're like, oh, I want to share what I've cultivated with others. And then people in the physical plane who are receptive will say, oh, that's wonderful. And what the physical plane people do, cultivating physical matter, affects the wisdom and intelligence of the people in the higher planes. So everyone has the ability to, in a compatible and loving way, facilitate each other's beautification process because of this common set of rules that everyone's following.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, awesome. Laura.
Yeah, well, basically when it comes to higher frequencies changing lower frequencies, anything that gets neglected or forgotten tends to atrophy or attract germs or parasites. It starts to degrade. It starts to kind of lose its form. and almost purpose. And that's where recognizing and bringing to life and animating our awareness of spirit is able to change this. It illuminates it. It brings vitality and growth, and that's sort of the function of miracles. It's one is able to take a situation that has sort of fallen into this negation and is able to awaken it to truth, and then all of a sudden, like, a change of energy happens. And I've been exposed to and have had times in my life where I was able to create such events. And it was basically just sort of this, I wouldn't say leap of faith, but this just awareness or connection to something way beyond the physical that was able to change the physical rather than the physical and the world of matter dictating, you know, everybody's experience at the time. So basically the function of higher frequencies and how they change things is that it's a constant resource. It never goes away. It's always there. It's only when we turn our backs to it or deny it or neglect it do things start to fall apart. And so the cycles of nature are sort of teaching us through this wheel of necessity, through the zodiac, through this sort of, you know, time period we're in of this gestation, you know, to this shift time that we're entering, that things die and decay, but they regenerate, and that, you know, things that do die end up replenishing the soil, and things grow even stronger. And so this is sort of a reflection of our souls as we go through this journey to the point that we are at today where, you know, one can sort of see the upper and lower world and the cycles of death, rebirth, decay, and life, and step out of the cycle and notice, you know, the immortal seed and just the breath of the breath of life and the animation of all of creation. And so when one can put their focus on that, they can not only accelerate the cycles, they can also break free of it, because this planet Earth is entering a period of activation of its own light body, and that nature itself and the cycles that it's been in are coming to a different state. And it's not that everything won't go through those different cycles, but we will be functioning on a certain level that we will be following ourselves through this process without feeling the loss and the situations that dramatically happen in order to take us to the next dimension or next experience or next level. And so nature doesn't have a judgment on it. It doesn't fear death. It doesn't fear, you know, dying. It doesn't have a problem when it's time to go back into the soil. A perennial flower isn't going to complain that it's time to go back into the dirt. It's functioning as a creative force that moves this planet and keeps it going. Our human souls are doing the same thing, except we have attachments to the experiences and we have feelings and emotions. And so we go through this enough to find a place of neutrality and to find the essence of this higher frequency that can lift us out of this fog and this sort of judgment and reaction and duality and need to understand what to believe and what not to believe and who to, you know, we start to really understand on an internal level what our power is all about, and we can sort of transcend our own human soul cycle within nature and become a creative force alongside Gaia and lift these veils and become more multidimensional and in an experience on cosmic proportions, not laws of matter, but more cosmic laws of just an immortal experience rather than, you know, we're just here and then we're going to die when we get old and we're going to lose our loved ones. We're much more expanded than that. And so when we recognize and we stay in touch with that, we're able to touch things around us and illuminate really, you know, the spark that exists within, because anytime anything's dormant or starts to die, it still does not lose that essence and that quality that brings it back to life again, that seed. So higher frequencies work in such a way that it stays in that recognition and it doesn't go into neglect. And decay isn't this sort of human decay of turning to evil. It's decay with nature in order to create new form, like a snake shedding its skin, rather than, you know, evil that degrades integrity and degrades morality and degrades the way that we treat one another. Instead, we're riding through a current and a cycle that stays in integrity and stays in higher consciousness, but doesn't feel the pain or the loss or the belief systems that cause us to suffer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, wonderful. Alfred, the question was, forgot was, do energy in the universe matter in such a way that actually changes the structure, such as like DNA or matter or anything like that?
Well, sure, and I think that is actually one of the principles that drives the evolution of the multiverse. One very specific example is the cycle that one of the many cycles that we're in now is about a 270 million year cycle, which is of the spontaneous disappearance of old species, and appearance of new species. And, we're in a very large species die-off, which some people attribute to pollution and things like that, but it's actually part of a natural cycle. And as part of that cycle is spontaneous appearance of new species. And one of the species that I like to focus on, because it's just very personal, I believe, is that we're experiencing, because of this principle of the relationship of energy to DNA, we're experiencing the extinction of Homo sapiens and the sudden appearance of Homo universalis. Some people call it that term. There are other terms, i.e. a more multidimensional human being with more expanded abilities in terms of greater activation of DNA, greater activation of the etheric body, of the chakra system, of all the connections up into all of the dimensional connections out through the crown chakra, and that DNA and those transformations of the etheric body are in fact triggered by energies that are emanating from the core of our universe, the interdimensional portal at the core of our universe, and then are transmitted and transduced through the galactic core, through our solar core portal, to the galactic black hole, which is the interdimensional portal. And in a variety of ways, we can call the interdimensional portal at the core of our universe, our particular universe, called God, or the voice of God, that is actually bringing about these extinctions and these new species. So we're actually transforming. Homo sapiens is actually becoming extinct as we speak, and Homo universalis is actually manifesting as we speak without leaving a fossil record, because all these changes are internal.
Mm-hmm.
So we are a manifestation of that principle.
Okay. So, well, before I go on to the next one here, I'd like to open up the phone lines now. So if anybody out there has any questions or you'd like anything addressed, please simply give us a call by dialing 1-718-664-9323. The number again is 1-718-664-9323. So now that we talked a little bit about energy, maybe we can kind of dig into the current state of the planet, and then maybe later on talk a little bit about what to expect during the coming months here in 2011. And since today's teleconference is on 2011, maybe we could go into, what has kind of led up to this point. And because there's a lot of things that transpired over 2010 leading up here to 2011, and now the current state of the planet. I'd be interested in hearing each one of your viewpoints on that. And I'd like to start with Laura on.
Sure. Well, 2010, there was a square between Pluto and Saturn, and an opposition between Uranus and I believe it was Saturn. And basically, the unconventional was challenging the conventional. And there's been sort of this opposition between what we hold as tradition and what we know is the new paradigm coming into our awareness. Many of us already hold the energies of the new paradigm, so it's really shaken up some of those that are more used to perhaps the conventional or the more mainstream. It's shaken up a lot of people's thoughts and views and perceptions of it, because this has been a huge movement of truth this last year. And this square between Saturn and Pluto has been very challenging to people's personal power. The brakes have been put on very often. People have felt very thwarted. Transformation had to involve structures of life, relationships, and some have failed and some have made it. But it's been a very challenging period. And so here we enter 2011, and we're already here. And the planetary aspects have shifted, of course, and this is really a year where all circuits are blown. Anything that really is not working, that is really not representing one's truth, sort of fall off the map. We're sort of faced with having to say goodbye to things we might have attachments to and not understand why they're leaving us. But there might be a lot of fear and just not wanting to face the unknown, but it's really leading us into more of who we are. And the quicker we can accept that and learn how to sort of ride this wave and surf it, so to speak, and just find harmony in the sort of chaotic shifts that are going about, we can kind of get to the next level. There is a assistance between Uranus and Jupiter. As Uranus is the one that creates all kinds of breakthroughs and breakdowns, Jupiter is very expansive, and so it gives a lot of luck and support. But it's also this year squaring Pluto, which is about change and transformation. So there's sort of still a kind of a cosmic argument going on within everybody's nature. And this involves, secrecy versus, things being exposed, limitation versus, breaking free, and basically hope versus fear. So, these are dealing with also timelines like the catastrophic and the positive timeline. And, the positive is always there. It's the most real one. But we're being challenged as far as how we perceive things, how we handle the relationships in our lives and other people's panic, and also what we hear in the news and certain agendas that have been in the works for a while and where they are right now, because we're shifting and transforming, and we're getting into this much, much higher frequency, which is going to blow everything off the map. But then we know all too well and plans that wish to sort of take that down, but that's part of this choice we have. The fear has taken form, and it has a life of its own, but it's our choice to either attach to it and play their game or set ourselves free and join into the realm of hope, but not just hope as in belief, but as in really taking on our own personal powers and being able to say goodbye to the things that aren't working for us and trust that we are being detoxed whether we like it or not. There's a lot of high frequencies coming in as we are accepting a lot of new truths that are coming into our world, a lot of revelations, a lot of things that, we're all kind of at the end of our rope when it comes to refuse to have that job anymore, refuse to put up with that BS anymore. And so we don't realize the power that all this shedding and all this sort of inner rebellion is doing as well. So, we don't want to let that everything that it's shaking up throw us into any sort of turmoil. We need to focus on how beneficial it is and stay in the current of the positive timeline, because that is the truth. Anytime we start to fall into the chaos and start to question it, then we start to attach ourselves to an agenda that is basically part of humanity's own manifestation of its shadow nature, of its own fear of who it truly is. And so we just have to stay in line with the fact that we have a choice within ourselves, and we don't have to look at the external world like it's controlling us. We're the ones in charge, and we get to make a choice. And regardless of the choice, we still have a force of something that's going to allow us to face the light and move from that darkness and really understand the true light and dark, which is the darkness being the mother womb which births and regenerates, and the light being our enlightened unity consciousness, constantly regenerating and taking us beyond this dimensional frequency.
Awesome. Wonderful, Laura. Rama, let's go with you next. And basically what we're talking about is maybe digging into a little bit of the current state of the planet right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I have a lot to say on this. So just how long do you want my answer to be?
This is only a 2-hour show, We're into about 1 hour and 21 minutes, or I mean, I guess that's what we have left. So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'll go for about 45 minutes. Just kidding. Yeah, I have a lot to say on this subject. So I've had the most fabulous breakthrough in my planetary healing work that I have ever had, which has always been in conjunction with people like Sananda and Archangel Michael and Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene and all the beings who are overseeing the evolution of this planet. I've had the most amazing breakthrough I've ever had because I've been trying for years, literally years, to heal the pineal gland level of humanity, which corresponds to gravity, it corresponds to ideas, it corresponds to information, DNA, power source, identity, and things of that nature. And the most amazing breakthrough was that just recently I succeeded in doing something which, again, I've been trying to do for years, because what I used to notice for many, many years, and what many other people have reported, is that when they focus on their pineal gland, there seems to be a lot of density there and a certain heaviness that even when you clear it, it tends to come back. And I attribute this to a certain amount of programming that was done upon humanity by a variety of sources that has now been nullified. So as of about 4 or 5 days ago, I finally succeeded in separating out everyone's mind on the planet, so they really had to be in their own mental space. Because what used to happen on this planet is that people's minds would connect, they'd unite, and they'd form some sort of a conglomerate mass entity, sort of a mass consciousness. But now, when I say a mass consciousness of this sort, I'm not saying that there's not the ability of mass consciousness to exist in a good way. I'm talking very specifically about the melding of minds, especially when you don't want it to happen. Like, you're just trying to go through the store and all of a sudden everyone else's thoughts are affecting you, or what's playing through the radio starts to affect your thinking patterns. Or you're sitting in your home meditating and you're hearing all these thoughts in your head that you know are not yours. Or you're just trying to live your life, but you keep finding that you keep playing out events that are not native to you. You're like, why am I acting this way? Why is this happening to me? This doesn't even seem like me. All that kind of perception was due to this melding of minds in a way that wasn't approved by the person whose mind was being melded into this mass conglomerate entity. And you could call this mass conglomerate mental space, the matrix, or many other interesting things. But the point is, it can't happen anymore. I found a way with the help of I found a way, and with the angel's help, I'm able to enforce it, that every being on this planet is locked into their own mental space, which it has the effect of a sort of a quarantine-like result, which is that now that our minds are isolated in our own mental spaces, we can finally clean them and clear them. And of course, if your mind is in a harmonious state, you can of course communicate with angels and other people and animals and trees and anything that you like, but it occurs through a fundamentally different method, which I would call resonance, which is how nature does it. In nature, you vibrate something out into the universe, and if the universe likes it, it responds, or a tree or a human responds with their own resonance pattern. There's not this sort of jamming of two minds together kind of thing going on, which is what was happening on this planet. So because of what happened 4 or 5 days ago planet-wide, we've begun officially the planet-wide activation of all pineal glands, which corresponds to the violet layer, the DNA system, the mind, basically, of humanity and all beings on it, and basically a huge clearing of the violet plane of this planet, the physical violet plane, which, again, relates to gravity and the physical radiation patterns of your DNA system and your pineal gland. Because of this massive clearing, we can now accomplish what we've been trying to do for a very long time, which is the Age of Revelation. What is the Age of Revelation? It's the time when all truths become revealed, all lies become known and dispensed with, and everyone is enabled to perceive more of who they really are and always have been. That veil of ignorance and confusion, which is associated with the pineal gland, can now finally be lifted. And what does this correspond to? Well, it corresponds to a lot of what Laura was saying. She was saying, in the 2011, there's going to be a lot of everything that doesn't fit, everything that's not truly part of you has to be let go of or shed or destroyed, and there's just no way to keep it. You can't cling to it. You can't hold on to it. It's going to disappear because we, as a people all around the globe, are changing deep within themselves. You won't you won't be able to or want to hang on to things that you no longer resonate with, things that you no longer perceive as you. So girls are going to wake up and realize they're in relationships they shouldn't be in. Boys are going to wake up and realize the same thing. Parents are going to say, gee, what have I been doing in terms of raising my child? Children are going to say, gee, what am I doing in terms of the pursuits I'm studying in school or life or the friends I've chosen. Everyone's going to be shooken up by basically realizing, oh my God, I'm a different person now, and this isn't what I want anymore. And the things that they do want, they'll keep, of course, and the things that they don't have, they're going to start pursuing. So it actually corresponds to the rapid realignment of the human with their inner spirit, which will result, in my opinion, in an increase in morality, an increase in kindness, and an increase in questioning the status quo, which will result in people will be looking for all the wonderful souls like you, all of you who are on this call and all of you who are listening, because all of you have the answers that they're looking for. And again, I could only do this Age of Revelation starting 4 or 5 days ago, because the Age of Revelation is not something we just sort of decide. You and I don't set up in the energy plane and say, you know what, we like to end this mess on planet Earth, and then we just sort of hope that something's going to happen. It's not really a matter of opinion. It's a matter of doing it. How do you scientifically accomplish the Age of Revelation? How do you do it at a physical level so there's no room for argument? It involves the activation of all the pineal glands of all people on the planet. The animals in nature already did that. They never had this problem. It's a problem particular to the humans because their DNA system was the one that was targeted and now is being healed. So we're in a time period that wasn't even possible 4 or 5 days ago. We're in the time period where we have begun the launch sequence for the Age of Revelation, and right now it's like still pre-dawn. We haven't even reached dawn yet, but dawn is coming. And then when we reach high noon, there'll be the ability to dispense information such as first contact and better technologies and who people really are as beings and all the stuff that you all have known for a long time. Again, people on the call or the people listening. But we can finally do this in a steady way because as soon as there's containment of the problem, as soon as we cut off the unpleasant input into people's minds, now their minds can finally heal in a steady way. Before, we try to heal and then everything would get sunk back under again. Try to heal and things would get sunk back under constantly, just endless repetitions because we never cut off the input of unpleasantness in the mental plane. Now it's all gone. So now, whatever you heal is going to stay healed. Very fundamental accomplishment.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so Alfred, what's going on with the current state of the planet?
Well, I think that what Laura and what Rama have said all ring very, very true. And one of the mechanisms why this is occurring is again because of the field of waves of energy consciousness are coming from the core portal of our universe, and that is now gradually amping up. There was a pre-wave of unity consciousness that started in July 2010, and it's sort of like someone is increasing, or some principle is increasing the frequency dial. And whatever is not, cannot coexist with those frequencies, well, just deconstructs, be that relationship or be that a relationship with institutions or ideas. If we look at what's occurring spontaneously in Egypt right now, which yet I haven't looked at the news today, but yesterday it was remarkable. I mean, it was like this wave of liberation from the matrix, and people just kind of walking around peacefully with their children on their shoulders. And it wasn't that, back to the barricades energy, but rather it was just the simple way that the flowers grow. So it was actually the manifestation of the first dimension in the third dimension, which is paradoxical.
Yeah.
I mean, so now if this time acceleration matrix is correct, and I think that there's a fair amount of science behind it, and people have done their homework and looked at all these historic events. Somewhere around March 6th or 9th, I think, we're going to be, coming up into a next plateau, and that'll be going through October 28th, and that is full-out universal consciousness. And then as of October 28th, 2011, then all those kind of wave functions cease, and it's just straight on. And we're more in a reality of where we're more in a kind of a 5D reality here, where our thoughts create our reality. Now, that's why it's so important. And I think that this is what a friend and colleague of mine, Jerry Wills, was trying to communicate. Jerry Wills is an extraordinary person in that he says he is, and I experience him as such, an extraterrestrial human from Tau Ceti, who was left here on Earth as an infant as part of a project of the Council of Worlds. And there have been a lot of humans that have been left here as infants to sort of grow up and kind of leaven the human fabric. and he was saying, look, you've really got to work to bring everybody along into unity consciousness. And I think that that's our great challenge, i.e. that there really is an interactive function here, and that is that we can all help each other tune into the universal waves and really begin to align our individual instruments and expand. I mean, for me, yesterday, as I was watching those television images from the Liberation Square and watching this young Egyptian who was a Google executive who was in prison for 12 days, and they came out and he was on national television, and he broke down crying when they showed him the images of people who had died. And then he later that day, he was out in Liberation Square with a microphone and saying, this isn't going to stop. And he was like transmitting this, and it's these waves of people just deconstructing a matrix, and it's that process, i.e., it's hitting planet-wide now. And so the matrix went out of agreement with the Egyptian population. And I was talking to somebody yesterday who said, oh, yeah, Mubarak was in on all the CIA meetings 30 years ago. And so Mubarak turns out to be a CIA agent or asset who's worth $70 billion, who's just nothing but kind of a stand-in for that, CIA Illuminati false matrix. So all that's starting to crumble, and it's these universal energies that everybody's picking up on. So at some point, that's going to start coming to North America. I know that South America's gone through it, and sort of Egypt, they say that Egypt Cairo, Egypt represents the throat. So they're, saying, and the matrix has really been concentrating, trying to enforce itself here in North America. I know that they had the Queen of England, who is like the matrix queen, come over here to Toronto when the G20 did a lockdown on Toronto with no notice and turned it into like a prison, and Queen Elizabeth II of England, as an Illuminati black magic figure, came over and did negative sympathetic magic on Canada and on the world later at the UN. So they're doing all of that kind of stuff to try to damp down the effects of these things and trying to use all of the chemtrails. The function of HAARP and of the chemtrails specifically is to shield our human auric mechanisms, and specifically the cord that comes out of our crown chakra, from being able to receive all of these waves from source, from these interdimensional portals. And now the word that we have from the regional galactic governance councils, through people like Stanley Fulham, who's now deceased, but a native Spanish intelligence officer who was communicated by the Galactic Council on November 9th, 2010, and told that their ships would appear over New York on November 24th, and they did. And they said that they are now starting already to counteract the effects of the chemtrails, because these are slowing down the spiritual. So the people in Egypt were able to overcome the effects of HAARP and the chemtrails. Probably they're so strong over North America that, it hasn't the critical mass of people who can break through that shield yet. So that's the function that we have. And very shortly we're going to be coming out with a new treaty to ban HAARP and chemtrails, and we'll be interviewing Clifford Carnicom of the Carnicom Institute, a leading scientist on chemtrails, next week, and bringing to light that this is spiritual warfare being engaged in by the Matrix. So what we can do in terms of liberating the North American mass in the way that the Egyptian mass is coming alive is just to begin to make all of these connections, not in a confrontational way, but just so showing that this is really energies that are inevitable and that are part of what 2011 is and 2012. I did a deconstruction of the WebBot analysis for 2011 and 2012 that showed, it's horrible breakdown coming through. Well, that's just because they're looking at it through the lens of breakdown. It's actually through the lens of breakthrough. You can look at what's going on in Cairo and say, it's chaos, it's horrible, or you can look at it and say, my God, this is a wonderful wave of creative human liberation. It just depends which side of the lens you're looking at it through.
Right.
So I'm not quite sure if I answered your question. and it's sort of, I'm kind of surfing the back of the envelope. But, yeah.
No, this comes in exactly like everybody's given their point of view, and again, the perspective of the person that's looking at whatever they're looking at, just like you said. That's what it comes down to, and we have a choice here in these times to either align with the positive, and simply because we live in a dualistic world right now, I think that's subject to change down the road here in these higher dimensions. But with what we're talking about here is if you align yourself with the positive attributes of the planet and humanity and all these other concepts, the ride won't be so rough. And, Laura mentioned the waves. I mean, why go up and down on these waves when you can skirt across the top of them? And it all depends on the person's perspective. I think it was you, Alfred, that said thought becomes reality. I truly believe that. I say that all the time. So, there's so many variables that are involved, and we're going to get into that here in just a second. But to transition here, Teri just popped on here, and I want to get her in the subject here about whether we're being assisted or not by higher beings, just like everybody's suggesting here. So give me 1 second to get her on. We're going to add her, and I don't know that this is her number, so this is the one that we need to do here. So we're going to get her on here in just a second. We have her up, and I think we're going to get her through cell, so we should probably just type it in. And somebody's doggy's going cuckoo for Coco's house right now.
Oh yeah, that's our little Papillon 7, who's our door watcher.
Oh, okay.
So it means that somebody's coming to our front door.
Oh, okay. All right, we're going to get Teri on here just a second. We're calling her right now. So, while we're trying to get her on here, yes.
Hello.
Teri.
Hi.
Hey, welcome to Universal Talk.
Thanks for having me. I'm sorry I had to get on late.
That's okay. Hello to Alfred, Rama, and Laura.
Oh,
Hey.
it's the favorite four, right?
That's it.
Okay, cool. Hi guys. Hi Teri.
Hi.
All right, Teri, you missed out on a really good hour here, but we're going to try to transition you in here, and it's quite appropriate you pop in at this time because we've been talking about energy and the current state of the planet, and the second, maybe in about 20 minutes, we'll get into what we foresee coming in the coming year of 2011. But we're just talking about the current state of the planet, and the question I wanted to ask you to start with was, do you feel that we are being assisted by higher beings? And if so, for how long do you think this will last?
Okay, well, I definitely know that we're being assisted. I get visited quite a lot, so I know that we're being assisted. And actually, and not to mention the fact that we're being assisted in different ways. It's like we have company with us all the time. Some in big places, some in small places. Like when I talk about company, I'm talking about extraterrestrial visitors. You just don't see them for what they really look like. And the reason that I understand that is because in my dreams I see how they come here. And so basically, yes, we have a lot of help right now because it's important that we have help. And we've been having help for a while, at least since the 60s, I believe. But you're seeing it more prominently now because now we're seeing more exposures of things happening. And what else was that question, Joe? I'm sorry.
How long do you think this is going to last? Is this going to be forever, or is the ET beings, the angels, and all that? Is this like the big grand stage, like almost like a play that they're helping us, watching us, and then whenever the transition's over at the end of the cycle, they can go do whatever things that are maybe more important?
Kind of like that. But it's kind of like that. I think everybody has a different perspective of what's really happening. And I'm not saying that I am the gospel or anybody else's gospel. It's all pieces of the puzzle that's coming together. The only difference is that in the 2011 now, it's becoming more clear. Mm-hmm. And so what's happening is that, yes, I would say that some of us are transitioning, and we are, I wish I could come up with the right word, because I'm more the feeler than the wordy person, but but we are transitioning, evolving into what you would call a different species. We're moving into another evolution of dimensional shifting. I really am saying dimensional shifting, and I'm emphasizing on that word. And I guess when we talk about the next part that you're talking about, that I can elaborate more on.
Yeah.
But yeah, there'll be an ending for the third dimensional aspect of humanity and Earth. There is an ending.
Okay. So
okay.
Do you see, and I'm trying to get you caught up on everything we talked about, which it's so funny that you're talking about everything. You said a little bit of what Alfred said and what Rama said and what Laura said, which is really cool. So it kind of confronts everything.
Oh my God, Joe. I'm driving home from work. It took me an hour to get home from work today. And like the Council of Four, the four that come to visit me all the time,
yeah,
they're just chattering along, telling me exactly what's going to be said. I'm like, okay, guys, I understand.
Okay. So what I want to get across here is, because we were talking about, I'm trying to help people with clarity right now with the 2011 and what does this mean to everybody. So what I want you to maybe go into a little bit is, do you think, or do you perceive that there's an association between frequency and dimensions? In other words, do you feel that the higher the frequency, the higher the dimension? To me, it appears that when you're at a lower dimensional or lower frequency, and that's the frequency you carry, you're in a lower dimension, like, say, 3D. And thereby, as the frequencies raise, by virtue of the raising of the frequency of whether it be the person, the rock, the animal, things, and they go into a different or a higher dimension because of the higher frequency. Do you see an association there?
Yes, and that's what's actually happening. And we're seeing it, many of us are seeing it more clearly, even those that are still in the third dimensional fear-based, I'm trying to put this lightly so I'm not offending anybody, but like the lower dimensional aspects of humanity that are still in their fear-based world, and they're closed-minded, they have even reached into a higher frequency, because these energies that are coming up through the universe, okay, this universal, I guess you would want to call it the black hole or something like that. Well, there's these energies that are coming through. It's almost like constant language, and their sounds, like you probably, some people would resonate them as sound symbols, languages coming from different, I think that's how a lot of us are opening up to the channels, because we're tapping into these languages. And so basically this energy that is coming up is raising in frequency and is getting stronger and stronger as the Earth, and this is what's creating Earth changes, creating mankind to change. So yeah, everything that is living is raising to a higher frequency. It's just there are those that are high, that are reaching, that have come here, okay, reincarnated, somehow got here, okay, that are raising in this frequency even stronger than others, because, and then especially at certain time frames, it's almost like it became a global thing where, like say in the 80s when we got the harmonic conversion that came through, okay, that harmonic conversion woke up a lot of light workers. And then even myself, 10, 11 years ago, it was just all of a sudden, it was like a zap. And all of a sudden, I went from that fear-based world into another world that I'm had to grow into, So, and a lot of people ended up doing that. And of course, they had to struggle through their third dimensional aspect of preconceived realities of how they're taught, from generation to past lives to everything else. They had to go through. This is where Reiki got so popular all of a sudden after the 80s, was because Reiki energy was a frequency also that actually helped people to, once they got attuned to that energy, what happened is it raised their frequency to help them to release themselves of issues, issues that they were taught in this lifetime. And then when they got a higher attunement of energy, then this is just a small part of the puzzle. I'm not saying this is Reiki is the answer, but it's just an example. And then that's why Reiki got so popular, because it was an energy frequency. It was a language. And so what happened was when people got attuned into the Reiki 3 and got those types of attunement through language and through vibration and thought and energy, what happened is that then all of a sudden they were releasing themselves of past life energy issues, to where they could come up and raise into this higher frequency that we're in right now, that is creating a clarity that attuned us to the earth and the universe.
Right.
Am I making sense?
Oh, yeah. And you know what? This is a good segue for my next question. And so thank you for that. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the variables because you mentioned Reiki isn't the total picture here, but it is part.
It's not it's just a little piece of it, yeah.
So when we talk about variables here, and I'm just going to put this out there, and I'm going to have probably Rama start with this one, but what other variables or influences are occurring all at the same time during this time transition? For example, like influences such as these higher beings that are sending us energy to help in our consciousness, or each individual person that walks your path, if they carry a higher frequency just by virtue of them getting into contact with you, they don't even have to say a word. It helps raise your vibrational frequency. And what about the consciousness field that's all around us? And we had talked about this, thought becomes reality. So if more people on the planet believe in one thing, then it becomes a reality within this three-dimensional frame of mind, which is, of course, subject to change during these times, but that's how it's been up to this point. And also maybe the energies that are being emitted from the black hole we talked about, and maybe opposing forces have some influence, because as they push up against you, you have no choice but to face it and grow. Other things maybe be dimensions and time. I mean, can you speak on these various variables, Rama, or do you have any other variables, do you think?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I have all kinds of ideas. Well, you've listed a bunch of variables, which I think most people who are listening, and obviously the ones who are also participating in this call, all of you have various ideas about everything that was mentioned, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. I want to refer to the most undervalued variable, and also sometimes not very frequently represented variable, which is the power of the humans on this planet themselves. Now, some of you might be thinking, oh, but I talk about that all the time. Well, yeah, maybe you do, but as a movement, I tend to observe the value and the importance of the human contribution is being very much undermined by the culture. And in many parts of some of these spiritual and lightworker communities, there's not much of an emphasis on what you can do and how you can do it. There's talk of, oh, we have to think good thoughts and we have to do good deeds, but really what I sense is missing is an understanding of just how physical this world is, and how every shift that you want to accomplish in this world has to be a physical act. So if you think of every human body on this planet as a network or a machine, then think of every body on this planet, every human body, combined as one machine or one tool of nature. The human body's machinery, technology, or technology, think of it that way. And what we do with our bodies creates different patterns into nature. What we're thinking, what we're eating, what we're wearing, what we're discarding, everything that we do with our bodies affects the course of the evolution of this planet, because this planet's the most physical thing you'll ever encounter. The planet's like the foundation that you walk on. She is very, very physical. And what our physical bodies do is of utmost importance. So when I was talking earlier about the idea of a planet-wide pineal gland activation, my point is that is a hugely powerful tool the people, everybody on this planet, if we all synchronize the activity of our bodies, we can create very powerful effects very quickly if we synchronize. And what I'm explaining is that, yes, there is the variable or the influence of the higher dimensional beings. Yes, there's the influence of the star people, and as you said, the energy coming forth from the central core of the galaxy, and maybe also larger levels of the core of creation, like universal and cosmic centers, other levels. But fundamentally, all of those energies are trying to instigate or create a shift in the combined bodily presence of all humans, because it's the humans that are emitting all the trouble. It's therefore the humans who have to change their emission patterns and emit something different or be destroyed. So the attempt right now is to have all the human bodies on this planet activate all their pineal glands in a synchronized way, and other things as well. But this is sort of the newest thing that we're trying to accomplish, in addition to many other more ongoing projects that have been going on for a while, such as general clearing and healing of the water content of people's bodies. The water on this planet is so polluted. The people, I don't understand how people even are alive based on the kind of water they're around if they live in a city, most of them. Maybe you have exceptional city water. But, most of the water on this planet is so bad. So there's constant projects like that to keep humanity alive. But the latest project is, okay, if we wake up everyone's pineal gland on the whole planet, they will all work as a team and affect this change, create this change that we're trying to have happen, which is the reawakening of humanity to their larger purpose and place in the universe. So there are other factors. There's an infinitude of factors that are affecting what's happening on this planet. But what are the most important factors? What factors carry the most weight? Well, ultimately, the factors that carry the most weight in your life are the ones that you have direct control over. Because what the people do in whatever part of the world you're thinking of, they'll do. Whatever the angels are going to do, they're going to do. What can you do? That's the most powerful thing that you need to be thinking about, because that is your unique contribution. You can make the job of the angels so much easier. You can make the job of the galactic core so much easier. Whoever said the galaxy doesn't feel pain? You think the galaxy likes what's happening here? Obviously not. They want it to be fixed. But the ones who can actually do it, who have the most power, are those of you who are listening. Why do you think we're doing this radio show? Because we are trying to have the physical bodies of all the physical people on this planet do something. I'm having an echo. We're trying to have all the physical bodies of all the people on this planet do something to contribute to this whole project. We don't need to know every variable that's affecting the outcome of what happens on planet Earth. We need to be aware of the most important variables and the ones that we have direct control over. And what you do with your physical body matters way more than you might have thought. What you eat, if you get sufficient sleep, and whether you do certain practices to awaken your greater bodily potential, your biological potential, these are the only things you need to be thinking about, because everything else is going to happen whether you say, yes, I agree this should happen, or not. What you do is what will change everything. If we work as a team, we can make the job of the angels so much easier. The human bodies as a combined team on this planet can change everything. They are the most powerful variable should they choose to act, because their human bodies are the ones causing all the problem. People like you are trying to retrain them. If we get all the all the bodies of all the humans on this planet to work in a synchronized way, this mission's over.
Awesome. Okay. Laura. Are you still with us, Laura?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically back...
Are we on me now? I'm here.
Okay. So the question was basically the variables that we all come into contact with, but maybe some of the listeners may not be aware of, that they could at least look at, so maybe have a better understanding, so that it changes their mindset. And what Rama suggests is that they change their or help themselves, which I love that, because we talk about that almost every time. What can each individual do? We've talked about this in the past, where if you work on raising your own vibrational frequency, just by virtue of that, you will help raise everybody that walks your path. So are there any other variables that you can think of that would help in this transition right now?
Yeah, well, I definitely speak about the same thing. It's very important to really be the agent of change, the force of, in a co-creative way. We have a lot of choices right now, and there's a lot of traps that we can easily fall into. We have to open our eyes. We have to watch what we eat. We have to know how to say no and understand boundaries and, just assist one another and really, work on our relationships and work on everything in our micro world, because we are, basically the living cosmos in the planetary body, but in a smaller sense. So we have to harness all these forces, all the archetypes, and really just clean house and create inner harmony, because everything we emit it affects everything around us. Everything we absorb and take in affects what we emit. We're very creative beings. We're very fertile, and we are becoming more and more fertile all the time when we have sort of this. We're up against, such, powerful choices as far as, the ramifications that they have, because everything is kind of, reaching a point, and it's a major tipping point right now. So, the variables are consciousness as far as spiritual freedom, taking responsibility for one's own thoughts and beliefs, and awakening the divine power within, not looking so much for a savior, but understanding that one can be guided and assisted by other races, by the Christ Sophia consciousness, the beings of spirit guides and all of that, and tools such as tarot, and to take more responsibility and not just kind of sit around and wait, and appreciate predictions because they're good guideposts, but understand that we're the ones that are creating their outcome. If we listen to them and we become complacent, not so much in like ET predictions as far as crafts and stuff, but predictions about our future. If we become complacent, then we're sort of letting we're not doing our work, and so we have to understand that we are the ones that are the creators here, and we're the dreamers, and it's up to us. And it's also important to not only be empowered on a spiritual level, but recognize, the false flags and the things that are happening to the environment, and know how to say no to things like the scanners, and not to just trust so blindly what the government says that they're protecting us from. There's a lot of threat about, biowarfare and a lot of different strains and illnesses going around, and we want to just, really make sure that our vitality is strong, that we are, really connecting to the planetary body, getting a lot of exercise, just being out in nature and just making that our primary relationship, really bringing in a lot of just that organic love and light into our personal connections, and just getting out of all this chaos, because we can sit here and complain, but if we don't make the changes in our lives and in our relationships, then we're getting nowhere. We can say that we hate war, but if we're fighting all the time with our loved ones and our families, then, we are emanating it on a micro level. So it's really about living the life that you wish the world to be, and making yourself that force. Mm-hmm. And then you are, that part of the planetary body that is doing the healing work, rather than the poison and the sickness that's attracting all these other elements. And I guess, a lot of people have already covered all this other stuff, so I'm just going to, leave it at that. But I guess for me the most important thing is the spiritual empowerment, and to really understand how important it is to be an honest and good human being, because our chakras get all clouded up and all junked up when we, are cruel, when we're judgmental, when we, don't honor ourselves or each other. And we want to keep ourselves clear, because these, as we awaken and these frequencies emanate from the galactic core, we're creating this transformation. And anything that opposes that, ends up being a blockage in our body. Any food that we eat that carries poisons and toxins, is something that we're eventually going to have to face or detox. But the frequencies of higher consciousness are such that they can accelerate this process and actually move matter and move things out of our bodies much quicker. So we don't need to overload on supplements and vitamins and be totally obsessed, with nutrition. We can also really bring in golden suns and bring our spirits into our bodies, which is a form of nutrition, because it revitalizes the cells. So, there's just multidimensional work to do on all levels, and just to be in charge of your world and not, look to externals so much, because many will lead you astray. And when you're empowered within your own nature, you'll feel more attracted to the things that are already in agreement with you, rather than give your power away because, you're in fear and you just, need some hope and need some reassurance. It has to start within as well.
Mm-hmm. So basically, having these awarenesses or higher knowings is not quite good enough. You have to actually be the example. Would you say that's true? Living your truth? Okay, awesome. Okay, Alfred, what do you think about the variables and have you anything to add to? I know you talked about the center of the galaxy or the black hole and some of the other variables. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I was really struck again by what Rama and Laura and Teri have said. When I was in Mallorca in December, I was introduced to a pineal gland meditation, which you can do for only 5 minutes or, for 10 minutes. And because meditation is really non-local and non-temporal, just taking that amount of time in our dimension can do a tremendous amount. And as most people, many people knowing, but as some people don't know where that is, if you look at your head, at your crane, and you sort of make an X in it, so that there's an X coming right between your eyes and all the way back, and then from your ear to your ear, and right in the center, and so sort of right in the center of your brain and your skull, well, there's your pineal gland. And if you sort of just make yourself comfortable and take, in fact, maybe why don't we just take 5 minutes now or 2 minutes and go through a pineal gland meditation.
Okay, that sounds cool.
Yeah. Sorry?
Yeah, no, that's great. Let's do that.
And people listening might want to just make themselves comfortable and, make an imaginary line from one ear to the other ear, sort of like there's this imaginary plane that's cutting down into your head. Of course, it's not cutting it in half. And another one that's coming down through right in the middle of your eyes, so you're cutting into quarters, and right in that X is where the pineal gland is, and you can begin to see it, and you've got your eyes closed, and so take a few deep breaths, and then just begin to send it light and energy that you're drawing in up through your feet and down in through your crown chakra, and just visualize your pineal gland. I'm just going to kind of keep on talking, but keep on visualizing it and holding it in this white golden light. And because the white golden light and the time that you're doing this here now is really outside of time and outside of space, just even the few seconds that you're doing now has a tremendous effect, and is allowing you to access enormous amounts of dimensions and to really perceive what is here, which is that we are in a paradise, in a very privileged, incarnation that we're just being gifted. Almost, is a true miracle from so many points of view. So you can hold that pineal gland meditation and release it whenever you want, but as you're walking around every day, or if you have a favorite meditation, you might want to switch over to a pineal gland meditation, as Rama was saying, and just, kind of do that for a while and get a little more torque.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that you and I should do one of those, Alfred.
Okay, sure.
And then we'll put it out on the YouTube like we've done, and just do kind of like a freebie out there for people.
Yeah, because people, because we can, using tools like YouTube or like we're doing now, people can go back and we can access so many things that are outside of time and space all the time.
Yes.
And we're really not bound inside of here. I mean, it's kind of like a framework or an anchor, but even if we just take a few minutes, it refreshes us and it liberates us and it reminds us that we are Source.
Right.
We actually are Source, R. And that is, an awesome realization and acknowledgement. And it's kind of mind-blowing once you get, really into the depths of it.
Right. Absolutely. Hey, thank you. Thank you, Rama, for suggesting that. I mean, this has been such a great teleconference so far. We got probably about 30 minutes left here. And
I'd like to, Joe, if I could share something along with what Alfred was just saying.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get you on next. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. That's almost a perfect example of something. I'm just going to share a personal experience. I take care, for the last 7 months, I've been taking care of intellectually challenged people, mainly 2 of them who are very aggressive. And when I first went in there, I felt the fear of how, when they come at you to go hit you, or they run off on you and things like that. I could feel that fear, which was, and for a while there, it wasn't an over-exaggerated fear because I know where I come from, but it was just the tension and the stress fear of it, of taking care of these kids. Now, just recently, I said to a friend of mine, I said, why did I put myself into this situation to work in such a violent atmosphere? And my friend brought it to my attention that if I did my work that I know so well, that the whole atmosphere would change, which is true. Even though there are some slip-ups, every once in a while I just got bit like crazy not too long ago. But what happened was I started to raise my energies by focusing on my energy centers before I went into the job. So when I knew that I was going into that job, I would just meditate, focus on raising the energies, focusing on love, sending that love out. And so when one of them is an autistic boy who's very violent. And so what happened is that when I went into that house, his whole demeanor changed. He kept on staring at me, like he was just staring at me. And the other person that was helping me take care of him kept on getting hit. And like he would bypass me, not hit me, but every once in a while you'd see him stare at me, and every once in a while he'd come up and he would take my hand to feel my hand or to pat my head, like he was looking for the energy. And so it just goes to show you that when you do raise those frequencies or that vibration of your chakras, especially if you're with the intent of love for that person and yourself, it really does change the whole atmosphere of what you're in.
Yes.
And I even saw that in this boy that I've been taking care of for 7 months, Sam. Every once in a while he'll lose it. But even his family came up and said, Teri, I don't know what you're doing to my son, but he is a total different person. And it's true, even though I see a mantis in him. And I went up to him and I said, okay, mister, come on out. I started talking to the being within him.
Right.
And I what happened was when I changed my thought process of thinking, oh my God, I'm in this third dimensional world and I'm working with these people that are hurting me and stuff like that. When I changed that thought process, when I started meditating and looking at them differently, looking at their energy field, looking at who they really are, and then raising my vibrations through my chakra energy centers, not just one, but all of them, it all changed.
Right. So you found power.
Much more cool situation.
So you found your own power by that. He was put in place. From my perspective, it's like he showed you your own power.
Yeah. Oh, actually, they taught me a lot. I'm ready to move on now, and of course, because I said I'm ready to move on, I am losing them as clients. They're getting placed in homes, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But it creates, because of that, it really showed me something of myself, showing me of my own power and allowing me to move on. And whatever my next step is, I'll find that out when I come back from California and Arizona.
Awesome. Okay, so we have about 25 minutes left. And, Teri, I don't know if you wanted to channel a short message or anything. Think about it. But in the meantime, what I'd like to do is maybe start with Rama with this. And since this is about 2012 and we were talking about the current state of the planet, but we were also going to talk about maybe some possible predictions, just basic. It doesn't have to be specific dates or times or anything, but generally speaking, what are you getting, or what do you feel is going to happen over 2011 with the energies and all the other variables that we talked about over the coming months?
Okay, all right. So again, to continue partly with where I left off last time, I sense the pineal gland activation of all the physical humans on the planet is starting to occur, and something is happening with this process that has not happened in the past, which is that consistent progress is being noted. Two of the different flows we've talked about is the idea of going in cycles, or a wave-like kind of pattern, or a rapid sort of skyrocketing launch, which just is this ongoing continuous increase, which I wouldn't think of as sort of going up a staircase and not stopping. Think of it more like a spiral, an exponential spiral of growth, where there's just the more growth you have, the faster it gets. In other words, the rate of increase is increasing. The speed is increasing. It's a continuous acceleration. And the acceleration is increasing. It's just this continuous growth. That is the model that I feel that we're in. I think we've emerged from the endless cycles upon cycles of going up and down kind of thing without making any much overall net progress. I think we're done with that, because that's just the illusion of movement. There's no actual total height change occurring. It's just a low point and a high point that keep counterbalancing each other, and that was not really getting us very far. But now I feel like we finally emerged from that progression into the exponential spiral model, which is much more pleasant for all of you, because all of you who are listening around the call, you all want change. You want it now, or soon, or fast, or good. Good change fast. You don't want change that stinks very quickly. You want good change fast. So I feel like we finally emerged into this model of progress, and that is the most fundamental fact that I want to draw your attention to, because many things will come in 2011, but the theme or the pattern that I'm sensing, I'm very much already sensing and looking forward to continuing, is the fact that the progress that we're making is going to stay and is going to grow. And the more progress we achieve, the faster it can grow. And the faster it grows, the faster it can grow. You see the acceleration going on. So this is all because if we can really have it so that people are not affecting each other's evolution anymore, steady progress can occur. The reason we couldn't have consistent progress is because all the people on the planet who were not participating in their own personal growth were slowing down all the people who were trying to have personal growth and personal evolution. Now I'm suggesting, or even declaring, that you, as someone who wishes to evolve and grow, will be protected and enabled to grow at your own pace, which means people can no longer interfere with your evolution. It is well known at a galactic level that the worst crime is the crime of modifying someone else's being without their permission. In other words, changing their personality, changing their thoughts, changing their DNA, changing them without their permission. This is well known to be the greatest crime. Why? Because your greatest gift is the right to be you. You know, maybe it's not our greatest gift to live in a palace every day of our lives or have this, that, or that other thing in our life, but our greatest fundamental gift is the gift of our own being, to be our own creature and not be mentally controlled into being someone else. So in the effort to free people so that they are enabled to live their own lives, I'm picking up where I left off last time, we've now made it so that people are finally in their own mental space. There's no longer this conglomerate entity where you're constantly feeling interfering thoughts from other people. If you think you still are, I would suggest that it's still coming from within you, these patterns that have only recently stopped coming at you from external sources. Now clean it out from within yourself. Anytime you feel like, gee, this doesn't really feel like me, this isn't who I want to be, this is not what I want to be thinking, just clear out the patterns. My guarantee to you is that now what you clear will stay gone, which is why we can emerge into this exponential model of growth. So what do I see in 2011? All kinds of things. But the thing that's different with the events of 2011 is that every beneficial change that occurs will be steady, consistent, stable, and solid, so that we're constantly building on top of it into an ever-increasing, accelerating arc of progression toward our ultimate goal. What's that actually going to look like physically? Again, the first thing I anticipate, greater morality among people. The very first thing I anticipate is people being nice to each other, first of all, because I've already seen it starting to happen. For many places and many sources, and Alfred alluded to it in the Middle East and or Egypt, I think there's other places as well, or you might even just see it down the street or in your neighbors or in your family or yourself. Who knows what source you might find, but there's just an ease of morality, because the prerequisite to morality is having a self. People who do not feel responsible for their actions will never go through the effort of becoming moral or behaving in a way that is kind or true or gentle, because they don't perceive any consequence for their actions, because they don't have a self to receive the consequences of those actions. So the prerequisite to morality is self. You need to have a being that is consistently evolving its set of ideas and can therefore make better conclusions day after day and say, well, that didn't work the way I planned, or I didn't like the way that felt, but that you have to feel yourself. So that prerequisite is now happening, but having a self. When there was that mass conglomerate entity, there was no responsibility. You were people were part of a mass conglomerate entity, like, oh, whatever, it's what everyone else is doing, doesn't matter. Everyone else is eating this way or polluting the planet this way or whatever and so forth, so who cares what I do? You know, or the, oh, how big am I? I'm just a small thing was the general attitude. But now that you're an individual, and I'm telling you, and everyone else on the call is telling you, the choices that you make do matter and change the world. Now there's responsibility. Now there's the chance of morality and increasing good decision-making processes. So I perceive fundamentally greater morality among people. That will lead to greater receptivity to first contact and free energy technologies that will free the planet physically. So first, greater morality among people, then government and military announcements about the presence of the star people, then the dispensation to free energy technologies, and then, more than likely, a population reorganization due to the instability of Mother Earth.
Okay, awesome. Laura, what do you see coming in 2011? Just any basic prediction?
Well, basically I feel that I really like what Rama had to say. You know, the Venus transits are really leading us to a natural stargate opening up. And what's been happening through time travel technologies, and particularly looking glass technologies, which was reverse engineered from Sumerian times, it was discovered, it has enabled folks to look at the future and look at the past, and that's given them the ability to mess with timelines and mess with, you know, our world. And you know, then we're dealing with the future selves of particular ET races that die out after about 52,000 years from now or so. And so they time travel back in order to keep these agendas alive, because that's the only way that they can keep their species alive. And so that's how they kind of reincarnate, is through this time travel. And so it doesn't matter, because the catastrophic timeline to them is the shift into the age of enlightened unity consciousness, peace on earth, whatever you want to call it, is a whole different frequency. They think we've all disappeared when really they just can't see us because they are in a lower density and they have played out something for their own survival, not realizing that they cannot control free beings. They cannot control us once we free our minds and once we free ourselves. So this all relates to what is written in the Law of One as well. And, when there's a natural stargate, it's a direct stream of energy from source itself. When you're dealing with, portals opening up and stargates that are manipulated through, these sort of technologies, you open up you're vulnerable to a lot of negative forces coming through because it's done with not a sense of responsibility or a sense of anything but the desire for power and control. So we're branching away from all of this as much as they don't think that's happening. And so what I see is that the amount of information that's going to come out and the amount of awakening that's going to happen, the amount of responsibility that people are going to be taking, we will start to just feel the rays and feel the bliss and feel the progress and go with it as everything sort of sheds away from us and we sort of remove ourselves from these entrapments and really set ourselves free. And so I also see that it's important to just maintain one center and to just do all the other things that we've been saying as far as the variables and how we handle them. But, I just see an acceleration in the things that want to take us down. And as that's happening, the acceleration of everything that's drawing us out of it is happening. And it's also marked and known in the Law of One, which is, David Wilcock refers to this a lot, is that if you are not into self-absorption and, self-service, just only serving yourself, and you're into more selflessness and serving all, this makes or breaks one's ascension. If one basically has signed up to do negative things and evil acts, those are the only ones that really aren't going to make it. You can be confused and sit on the fence and still not be fully awakened and still not know what truth is out there or be fully exposed to it, and you'll be okay. It's about your nature. It's about being a good person. It's about just wishing, that others are okay and that you're not out to harm anybody. Some of us are carrying a lot more information than that, and we really have our eyes wide open and possibly always have. But people don't really need to fear. They don't have to hurry up and get it and be in a panic about it. As long as they, have a nature that is not just about the self and selfishness, and serving something in harming others for the sake of themselves, they're going to be fine. So we're dealing with a lot of people that are going to be shifting, regardless of what they know or don't know, as long as they haven't signed up for some sort of very evil, intended agenda. And so what I see is that people, will be panicking and hanging on to people that seem to be speaking truth. And what do we need and what should we do and blah blah blah. So there's going to be a lot of hysteria, but there's going to be a lot of those who are going to be very dependable, that are not carrying a chaos that is stronger than the chaos that might be taking place, that they are somehow stronger than all the upheaval, and they'll be depended upon, folks like us and others that are out there. And so I see that there's going to be a co-creative sort of mutual exchange of energy and stability starting to happen through just that reassurance and that just grounding ourselves and just really keeping ourselves in check so that we don't fall into any sort of energetic disturbance that could, make this a difficult transition. It doesn't make or break our ascension, but we want to have a smooth ride because in times of panic and chaos, we can, just attract challenges to ourselves that we could most possibly avoid, but yet we have to allow ourselves to let other people manifest their own wake-up calls and not try and intervene too much, but also make ourselves available. So I see all sorts of unity happening, all sorts of connections happening, and this incredible splitting away from everything that has had a hold on so many.
Okay, awesome. Alfred, what do you see basic predictions for 2011?
Well, I think that most of the trends have been touched on with what Laura said and Rama said, and with the acceleration of the consciousness waves of enlightened unity consciousness coming from what we can call source, I see the accelerated deconstruction of the matrix so that that all begins to fall away and it evaporates, and there's really no memory of the past. Hopefully that will be a very easy process. If we look at what's going on in Egypt as an example, so far, the army is just kind of standing there and letting the people, they've taken the position that they're not going, so far, that they're not going to fire on the people. So they're kind of standing around and everybody's going through this transformation. If that can hold, and if that could hold for the whole planet, so that we all kind of just stand in place and just transform, that would be awesome. And kind of come out the other end, which shows that Armageddon is within, really.
Right.
Whether or not that can occur remains to be seen, but that would be an ideal process.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, thank you, Alfred. Teri.
Yes.
I don't know if you want to say a few final words here or if you want to channel anything at this point, but maybe a brief message to the listeners for basic predictions for the coming years and maybe what may ease the minds of the listeners.
Okay. I'd like to bring it in, I'm going to bring it into a little bit of simplicity, and it's exactly what everybody else is saying. What's happening, the channel right now, if I went into a deep channel, it would not be a good thing because I might still be going after the show.
Oh, no.
So I'm going to stick it to an open channeling.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So what we are discovering is that there is many of us, or many of the people that are in transition, in this enveloping of transition, they are witnessing a big change and transition in themselves. Okay, and what is happening is that they feel like they're becoming more clear. And it's almost like these blocks.
Hold on a second, Teri. Sometimes this Skype all of a sudden kicks up things that shouldn't be on here. Okay, go ahead. I think we got it under control. Sorry about that.
That's okay. And what it is that we're all experiencing the law of attraction. And it is becoming more clear. It's almost as if we think of something, we are manifesting and we're seeing it before us. And so, and another thing that is happening right now, and I'm talking about now. I'm not talking about what I see in March or what I see in June. So I'm going to start here and now. Is that everyone is feeling a sense of law of attraction, and that is everyone. So it depends on how you're thinking. And so if you're still thinking in neediness, you're attracting neediness. If you are still thinking in a third-dimensional aspect of reality, of holding on, I think what it is that we're raising it into our higher energy field. And so what's happening is that we are manifesting what we're looking for, and we're manifesting it almost immediately. What I feel and what I'm seeing is we're quantum leaping, if that makes any sense. I don't know what that means yet, but it's almost like I feel like we are jumping into bubbles of time and bubbles of dimensional experiences. And it's just like somebody, I think it was Laura, just said that I feel that our third dimensional reality is disappearing, and that we are not we're not seeing with the same third dimensional eyes that we used to. And so those of us who are still dealing with areas of our life that is not working, that's holding us back, that's creating resistance, okay, all we have to do is change that energy and thought. And we are in that energy right now that we can change that, because there are still people that are in relationships that are holding them, that make them feel like they're being held back, but they don't know how to let go. And so all they have to do is look at it and ask for it to be let go. And it will happen as long as they hold on to that. So it's a lot of like right now we have one foot in our third dimensional world and one foot in our fifth dimensional world. And there's a part of us that's saying, I want to jump. And so what's happening is that because you want to jump into that fifth dimensional awareness of oneness and of what you know is there, you keep on asking for it. So situations are going to be coming, people are going to be coming that are going to help you get there. All right, that's what's going on right now. And then around March, sometime in March, and I'm not a date person, but for some reason it has just been really being drawn to me in reference to how March is going to be a pivotal. What's happening is that a lot of us feel like we're being held by chains, and that chain is financial responsibilities. And so we're all looking at these financial responsibilities as though, and what's happening is that we seem to be very intent and on getting rid of credit cards, getting rid of car payments, getting rid of house payments, getting rid of, and finding ways, and we're even thinking of finding ways of changing the way we eat, the way we live our lives. And so that is all becoming a very extreme consciousness somewhere in March, in between March and June. And I believe that the June that they're showing me is where we are going to break free. Those of us who are looking to break free, to get our foot out of that third dimensional reality, we will definitely be finding our right place, right time, right answers will be more clear than we ever were even since January 1st. Will be more clear in what we know we have to do. A lot of us are being pulled to soul friends that we haven't even met yet. Even myself, I'm going out to Arizona for 7 days and then California 7 days to meet a whole bunch of people I don't even know. So I'm hoping to see you there, Laura. And then, and a lot of us are just having these strong urges to get out of businesses and work that we've done before and move on to something that is more peaceful, more in the realm of that will create a change and a shift in the world itself. So that's what I'm seeing for up until June.
Okay. All right, so we have about 4 minutes left, a little bit less, so thank you for that. What I'd like to do now, I'm just going to add my own 2 cents before I allow everybody else. And basically what I would tell the listeners is that we all have free will, so therefore we all have a choice. And what I would suggest is to align yourself with the positive. Now, this is if you want to ride the waves or skirt across the top of these waves that are coming. And since everything is energy and we're having these waves of energy being emitted to us, why not ride the tops of the waves rather than going up and down and up and down? So the best thing that I know to suggest would be to align yourself with a positive, whether it be a positive timeline, a positive future, positive whatever. Be service to others rather than service to self. Thought becomes reality, so be careful what you're thinking. Think more positive, because as you align yourself with the negative, that's what you attract back to yourself due to law of attraction. Do things with trust. So if you make a decision, don't sabotage yourself by a minute later saying, oh, I can't do that because somebody told me I couldn't. So no fear, no doubt, and simply trust and ask for it. Ask your angels, ask your guides. Also, the most important thing I can tell you is try to raise your vibrational frequency as high as you possibly can, because when the end is here, that's where you're going to be. So those would be my suggestions. We have 2 minutes left, so I'm just going to go down the line here in 30 seconds, Alfred. Any suggestions for the people?
I really recommend a profound sense of humility and awe.
Awesome. Rama?
You can go to my website, evernewjoy.com, and read about and listen to how to do the pineal gland technique, or you can see my video on YouTube, Activating Your Intuition, under Rama or Evernew Joy, because there also I show you how to do this pineal gland technique, and doing the pineal gland technique will help this world out very much, and you.
Awesome. Thank you. Laura?
Just don't be afraid to be fully who you are, and don't worry what anybody else thinks, and live for yourself in that sense of freedom, but live for others in the sense that you care for their well-being and the well-being of all and this Mother Earth.
Thank you. Teri, any final words? You got about 10 seconds.
Live in your heart.
Let your heart lead you. Be the example.
Yeah, that's good. That's kind of like what I meant.
That's what I thought you meant. Okay, thank you all for tuning into the show. Thank you, guests, of course. Helped make this happen. It was a wonderful show, and I'm honored to be a part. Speaking of humility, again, thank you all for tuning into our show. If you like the show or dislike the show, any other questions or suggestions of content for future shows, email me at universaltalking@gmail.com. Or if you missed part of the show and would like to listen to the content or would like to refer a friend, simply log on to my website at www.universaltalk.info. And this is Joe Marra signing off for Universal Talk.